Bilingual dictionary. A bilingual dictionary, as contrasted to a monolingual dictionary, deals with two languages. The lexical units of one language are defined in another language. The language whose lexical units are defined in the source is called the source language, and the language used to define these units is called the target language. In other words, the source language is the language of the entry word, and the target language is the language of the translation equivalent of meaning of the entry word. The titles of these dictionaries generally, though not exclusively, indicate their nature. In a Hindi-Tamil dictionary, Hindi is the source language and Tamil is the target language. The entire work of a bilingual dictionary involves providing equivalents to the lexical units of one language by the lexical units of another language, that is, coordinating with lexical units of one language those lexical units of another language which are equivalent in their lexical meaning. It is the field of interlingual translation of translation proper and interpretation of the verbal signs by means of some other languages. Before starting work on a bilingual dictionary, a detailed planning is in respect to this purpose, coverage, and the audience should be done by the lexicographer. The purpose of the dictionary should be clearly defined. Does it aim to equally serve the purpose of the speakers of both the source and the target languages? Or is it designed to serve the speakers of the source language only or the speakers of the target language only? Does it aim to help in comprehension or in the production, and for who, the source language speaker or the target language speakers? Most of the bilingual dictionaries of Indian languages do not define their audience. Sometimes tall claims of serving the speakers of both the languages are made, which has become a highly debatable point now. As scholars argue, a primary problem is the composition of a bilingual dictionary is to decide whether the work is intended primarily for the speakers of X language or the speakers of the Y language. It is clearly impossible to pay equal attention to both X speakers and Y speakers in one and the same way. Types of bilingual dictionary. There are two focal points: the use and the purpose of the dictionary. With these points in view, the bilingual dictionaries can be classified on the basis of the following two oppositions: dictionary for source language speakers versus dictionary for target language speakers, dictionary for production versus dictionary for comprehension. On the basis of these, two dictionaries can be presented with one language as the source language. Dictionaries for the speaker of the source language for the production of text in the target language. For example, Hindi-English dictionary for the Hindi-English users. The user will refer to this dictionary in order to express himself in English and will need to know how English words he finds there are used. He will also need additional information about the difference in meaning of the English words if they are polysemous. This is the native to foreign use of the dictionary. Dictionary for the speakers of the target language for comprehending the source language or text, or for translation in his own language, that is English Hindi dictionary for a Hindi speaker. He will use it to understand the text in English or to translate from English to Hindi. For this, he must know the main Hindi equivalents and the difference in the semantic structure of the English source language word as compared to the equivalent in Hindi. This is foreign to the native use of the dictionary. In a similar way, two dictionaries, English Hindi and Hindi English, could be prepared with the English speaker in view. Another point to be noted about the purpose of the dictionary is whether it is prepared for the use of scholars, for the students, or for the layman. Any type of dictionary, etymological, historical, dialectal, whatever it may be, could be a bilingual dictionary. Such dictionaries are mostly for scholarly use. Although in the compilation of a bilingual dictionary, the above criteria are to be kept in view always, the adherence to a single criteria is rare, if not impossible. Generally speaking, a dictionary which pursues exclusively one of the possible intentions is a rare phenomenon. It is possibly only in a language with abundant lexicographic resources or in situations which do not allow another solution. The usual situation is, however, that the dictionary is planned as to be helpful in more than one respect. Another point related to the dictionary designed with the speakers of the source and target language in view is the language of direction in the introductory part, as also with each individual entry. If the dictionary is meant for the speakers of the source language, the introduction and direction should be in the source language. But if it is meant for the target language speakers, it should be in the target language. For example, in an English-Hindi dictionary meant for the Hindi speakers, the direction should be in Hindi. Similarly, in a Russian-English dictionary meant for the English speakers, the direction should be in English. But if the same dictionaries are meant for the speakers of the source language, the direction will be in the source language. For example, a Hindi-Russian dictionary for Hindi speakers will give direction in Hindi, and Russian-Hindi dictionary meant for Russian speakers learning Hindi will have it in Russian. In some dictionaries meant for the speakers of the same language, source language, even the meanings are translated in the source language script. Now, how to collect data for a bilingual dictionary? Collection of material in a bilingual dictionary involves more or less the same methods as used for a monolingual dictionary. In a monolingual dictionary, the slips are scrutinized, the context of the lexical units are compared, and different senses of the word are found out. In a bilingual dictionary, the context in which a lexical unit occurs in the source language are not only compared with another, they are also compared with the context of the target language in which the equivalent of the lexical unit occurs, to find out their compatibility or comparability in terms of their total or partial identity. In order to achieve this, there should actually be a parallel collection of data of both the languages. The focus of a bilingual dictionary is not normative. It is more of a reference type. So, a bilingual dictionary should be more up to date than the explanatory monolingual dictionary. Its aim is to serve in direct communication, so it cannot wait for the accepted standards in the languages. The sources of collection need to be as exhaustive as that of a bigger monolingual dictionary. A bilingual dictionary cannot fully serve the purpose of a total understanding of the second language. According to scholars, a bilingual dictionary in the form of the lexical as they exist today is useful only for beginners. It is argued that an account of practical difficulties, the bilingual dictionary cannot offer real meaning and the exact semantic range for the words of a second language. It can only help in conjecturing about the possible meaning of a given context. So, it is advised that the readers should shift to explanatory dictionary whenever they think necessary. A bilingual lexicographer can use monolingual dictionary in any, but be careful in analyzing in detail the semantic range of a word and its correspondences in the target language. The dictionaries should be used as a secondary source only. Texts of different subjects should be used for the basic collection. As in the cases of monolingual dictionaries, the bilingual dictionary also should make of newspapers, magazines, and the language of the mass media as radio and television, etc. For a language with vast lexical gaps, which is quite usual with developing languages, a dictionary of a developed neighboring language should be used as a help to fill in these gaps. For example, from a Bangla dictionary, many lexical units can be created in Odia or Assamese by this method of loan translations, loan shift, etc. Although the corpus of a bilingual dictionary covers the same type of resources as those of a monolingual dictionary, the translated texts have a greater role in the former. If there are translations from the source language, they should be utilized by a lexicographer. It provides cues for the lexicographer to translate the culture-bound words in a more appropriate way. Selection of entries. Selection of entries in a bilingual dictionary depends on the types of size of the dictionary and its prospective uses. If the dictionary is meant for native to foreign language use, that is for the source language speaker for expressing himself in the target language, or translating into the target language many words typical to the source language culture may not be included in it, because the speaker knows these terms. But in a dictionary meant for the foreign to native language use, that is for a target language speaker to understand the source language, the words should be included with their meaning, because the target language speaker may come across those words in the text of the source language. If the dictionary is small and is meant for the native to foreign language use only, uncommon words or words of lower frequency may not be given. But if the dictionary is meant for the target language speaker to understand the text of the source language, and that's for Telugu speakers to understand the text of Hindi, these words should be included, because the user may come across them while reading the text of the language. In the Oxford Progressive English Hindi Dictionary, meant for the Hindi speakers, knowing Indian culture, the words sampan, sausages, style, etc. are not included, because these words do not occur frequently in the texts that the Indian learner comes across regularly. The smaller dictionaries have no scope for in the inclusion of archaic, obsolete, regional, vulgar or colloquial words in the bilingual dictionaries. For languages which are closely related, say Hindi and Urdu or Hindi and Bangla, differential dictionaries could be prepared to give only uncommon and widely different words not having generality for both the languages. The words which are common and have common derivatives may either be left out or given without derivatives. In a Bangla Hindi dictionary, the word like kast or trouble and the derivatives like kar or dayak or troublesome or sadhya may not be given by the derivative or kast system with great trouble. I should find a place, because this is not found in Hindi. But such dictionaries are not much of practical use. For the dictionaries of related languages which have borrowed from each other or from the same source, care should be taken in defining what is called false friends. Words similar in shape but having different meanings. If the language belongs to the same family, the lexicographer may be tempted to treat such words as having one meaning, but because of semantic changes, the word may have different meanings. For example, if you notice here, Hindi sthai, permanent, and Kannada ad hoc. Hindi Siksha, education, Marathi, punishment. Hindi Hanuman, the name of the god. In Bangla, it is monkey. In Bangla, it is Satkar, the respect shown to the dead body. last rites. In Gujarati, it is respect or hospitality. So these are called false friends, which are structurally similar but different meaning. The shape similarity should also be kept in view in case of the words having only accidental shape similarity without any semantic relations. As for example, Hindi an means prestige and Malayalam an, which means elephant. Dictionary entry. A typical entry in a bilingual dictionary gives the following information: head word, pronunciation, grammatical characteristics of the word, meaning or gloss in the target language, use of the word in different contexts, exemplifications of the valency of the words in the target language. The criteria for selection of head word for a bilingual dictionary are the same as that of a monolingual dictionary, but the criteria may be determined by not the following linguistic consideration only, but also cultural, especially for the unknown and unwritten languages. Choose as simple a form as possible. Choose as short a form as possible. Choose that form which the greatest number of sub-entries can be derived. Choose that form which vernacular speakers are most apt to look for when they want to know the meaning of the word. Choose that form which the vernacular speakers find easiest to understand. Spelling and pronunciation. The general problem of pronunciation has been discussed with monolingual dictionaries. A basic requirement for a bilingual dictionary is to have a contrastive study of the two languages. As the phonemes of the source language with all the allophonic variations should be given in detail with their correspondences in the target language, the front matter of the dictionary should contain a list of all the phonemes of one language with their equivalents in the other. A more useful method would be to give a brief phonological sketch of the two languages as an appendix. As for giving pronunciation in the source language or the target language, it depends on the use of the dictionary. If the dictionary is to serve the purpose of the speaker of the target language, the pronunciation should be given in the target language. The Oxford Progressive English-Hindi Dictionary and the English-Hindi Dictionary give pronunciation in Devanagari. But if it is meant for the source language speakers, the pronunciation need not be given because the speaker knows the pronunciation. But when there is a large gap in the phonemic and graphemic systems of the languages, and the speaker is likely to commit a mistake, pronunciation may be given in the source language. This much about the entry word. It may be argued whether the pronunciation of the equivalent or translation is also to be given in the source language. For example, an English speaker who consults an English-Hindi dictionary would find it difficult to pronounce the Hindi words. For his convenience, the pronunciation of the target language equivalents should be given in Roman, but this would consume a lot of space and would be a practical impossibility. For this, bidirectional dictionaries should be prepared. It should be useful for preparing English-Hindi or Hindi-English dictionaries in the same volume. So the English speaker could see the pronunciation of the Hindi words in the English-Hindi part. But this is practicable for similar smaller dictionaries only. Some dictionaries, which are basically learners' dictionaries, give the translation of the meanings of the source languages. This helps the source language speaker to learn the target language. Grammar. As in the case of pronunciation, a contrastive study of the structure of the two languages is a prerequisite for providing grammatical information in a bilingual dictionary. The two grammatical systems should be thoroughly compared, and correlations is made between the similar and dissimilar grammatical categories. Very often, there is no correlation between the grammatical categories of the two languages. Marathi has 3 genders, Hindi has 2. In some languages, the gender system is based on semantic notions into animate, inanimate, human, non-human, while in other languages, the gender is arbitrary. In some languages, the gender is grammatical and systematically significant. In others, it is not. When in a dictionary, the letter language is the source language and the language with grammatical gender the target language, it creates a problem. The speaker of the source language, if he has to generate or translate text into the target language, must know the gender, otherwise he may commit such mistakes as happens in cases of Hindi to Bangla translation. In such cases, either the gender is covertly marked by some symbols or overtly marked by abbreviations for the gender forms. In the Hindi course, we have noted that all the Hindi words marked for gender in an overt manner. Care should be taken to give equivalence to the source grammatical category, but if there is no correlation between them, the equivalent should be so phrased so as to equivalent of the source language word. Equivalent or meaning. As noted earlier, the basic task of a bilingual dictionary is to provide equivalence of the lexical units of the source language in the target language. There are basically 2 types of equivalence: translational equivalence and explanatory equivalence. Translational equivalence can be fitted into the context of the translation in the target language. As per example, English word dog and Hindi kutta are translational equivalents. For this purpose, context of the source language is collected and they are translated to the target language. If any word in the target language fits into all the translated contexts, it is a complete translational equivalent. But this rarely happens. For example, Hindi patli is used in different contexts, as in patli kitab, that is thin book, patli gali, narrow lane, or patli kamar, slim slender waist, patli ajai means light quilt, patli dhoti means fine dhoti. Here patli has as many as 5 equivalent senses in English, and none of which can be said to be a complete or absolute equivalent for the English word thin. As complete equivalents are rare in languages, the dictionaries usually give partial or comparative or near equivalents. Hindi Desi has the following equivalents for Hindi. Desi means country-made, Desi means native, not foreign, Desi means pure, Desi means indigenous, Desi means rural. These are only explanatory or descriptive, but they can also be fitted in the translated contexts of the target language. These explanatory equivalents have some descriptions in parentheses. These descriptions are like defining, giving more information, and cannot be fitted into the contexts of the target language. The translational equivalents are good for the purpose of producing text in a language, whereas explanatory equivalents and the explanations are good for providing cultural information. Problems of equivalence or meaning in a bilingual dictionary. Languages have their own systems of organizing form and meaning. So, lexical items are organized differently in different languages. As there is a lack of isomorphism, there are no exact correspondences between related words in different languages. As already noted by earlier scholars, exact correspondences or absolute equivalents are those which can be fitted into all the translated contexts of the target language. Words They should have a totally identity between the lexical attribute of the two languages in all their semantic components and meanings, denotative, connotative, collocations and grammatical. As these are rarely found, as noted earlier, the lexicographer gives partial equivalence only. As pointed out by Naida, though dictionary compilers cannot attain as absolute definition of a term in another language or culture, nevertheless, they can give very useful approximate descriptions, which is very much useful for bilingual dictionaries. Although finding out equivalence is a problem for all classes of words, there are a few which present a general difficulties. Among these, the culture-bound words are the most notable. A bilingual dictionary does not only mean a dictionary dealing with two languages, it is also a bicultural dictionary. It correlates the processes and objects of one culture with that of the other. If there is a continuum between two cultures, the problem of equivalence is not as difficult as is the case those between the cultural differences. The lexical units belonging to the following groups of cultural present great difficulty for equivalence. A bilingual dictionary finds it difficult to provide equivalence for them, and he has to describe them in some details. It also depends on the purpose. If the dictionary is for explicating the source language, description should be given. If it is for learning the target language, equivalence, though not semantically identical magic, can be given. The material world, articles of food, areas, dresses, house, household goods, etc. are culture specific. Also, there are 100 types of nets and baskets, several types of drums and pipes, various kinds of earrings and bracelets, and innumerable types of household utensils. Equivalents for these are difficult to find between the two languages, even if these are closely culturally related. Every culture has its own social system, customs, and rights, with words for them. It is difficult to translate them. For example, Hindi word suhagin, a lady whose husband is alive and who can participate in some auspicious functions. It is difficult to get an equivalent for this from English. It is sometimes same in the case in the following words. The lexical unit belonging to semantic fields of kinship terms, color terms, time, weights, and measures, etc. are other notable items for which equivalents cannot easily be available. Besides these, there are various other semantic fields like human feelings, movements, etc., for which we do not get absolute equivalence. Besides these, there are certain other factors which contribute to the near rareness of the equivalence of the two languages. The problem of finding equivalence for polysemous words is quite difficult for a bilingual lexicographer. You have to be more careful to find how the polysemous words can be defined, understood between the two languages. Multiplicity of meaning, of the nearest meaning of the word of the source language, the lexicographer has to adopt some device or strategy to discriminating between the different senses of the word. The same situation is faced with a polysemous word in the source language, having polysemous word as it is equivalent, sharing some meanings in common and not sharing the others. We find that two words have different semantic structures. The Hindi equivalent has larger semantic range. For this, the dictionary maker has not only have to give more equivalents but also indicate the limitations of the verb which is found in some Kashmiri languages to help the Hindi users understand and explain the larger semantic range of the Hindi verb to help them Kashmiri users. Such cases require sense discriminations so as to disambiguate the polysemy words. The sense discrimination depends on the user and on the use in the dictionary. That is, on whether the dictionary is for the native to foreign language or foreign to native use. In both, the cases of sense discrimination is not needed if the source word has no meaning and has only one meaning and the target word has only one meaning. If the dictionary is meant for the native to foreign use, sense discrimination is needed when the source word has one meaning for which the target word has a Polish word entry. In a dictionary for native to foreign use, sense discrimination becomes necessary if the source word is polysemous and for each of its senses the target language has words with one or more senses. As we have already described, the Hindi word patil or patli and its different meanings, narrow, thin, slim, light and fine, and different senses of these meanings are given differently in English dictionaries. To conclude, the above account of a bilingual dictionary shows that the task of a bilingual lexicographer requires a thorough knowledge of the two languages in respect to their phonology, grammatical and semantic structure of words. Above all, he has to have complete familiarity with the two cultures for which the dictionary is being made. With regard to the nature of equivalence for dictionaries of unwritten languages, although one word equivalent would be quite frequent and preferred in that way, that will be quite useful for the translation purposes. It would be more beneficial if expected glosses are given for both the languages. The expanded gloss, consisting of about 5 words, including the function words, gives more ethnographic profile, explanation and informations, and explains certainly the kinship terms and helps in making some of the otherwise unclear meanings very clear for the target language users. In cases of bilingual dictionary compilations, collections of language data, analysis of language data, and interpretations of meaning, accounting for polysemous words are complex tasks which a dictionary maker, if very much well acquainted and equipped with both the languages, can do to certain level of satisfactions of the end users. Thank you.